The little girl had never made a sound in her life, yet on Christmas Eve, beneath a sky washed pale by winter daylight, she opened her mouth and whispered a word that shattered a guarded heart. "Mommy." Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet miracles that change lives, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Kindness Journal. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that need them most. Snow drifted lazily across the manicured lawn of the Ashford estate, settling on marble statues and the glossy black gates that separated wealth from the rest of the world. Inside the sunlit living room, decorated with towering Christmas trees wrapped in silver ribbon, Maricela Vance stood by the window holding a small cardboard box that contained her entire year in that house. A framed crayon drawing of two stick figures holding hands. A tiny knitted mitten. A folded thank you note written not in words, but in careful pencil sketches. It was her last day as a nanny. For 12 months, she had devoted every ounce of patience and tenderness to Isla Ashford, the 6-year-old daughter of tech millionaire Alaric Ashford. Isla had been born profoundly deaf. Doctors had tried therapies, specialists, and devices. Nothing had given her voice. And after Isla's mother passed away from a sudden illness 2 years earlier, the house had grown impossibly quiet. Maricela had arrived on a bright January morning, stepping into a mansion heavy with grief. Alaric had been polite but distant, a man who could build empires from algorithms yet could not navigate the fragile world of his own child's silence. He hired the best tutors, the finest therapists, and finally, a nanny trained in sign language and early childhood development. That nanny was Maricela. She remembered the first time Isla looked at her, really looked at her, with wide gray eyes that mirrored her father's but held none of his armor. The child had not smiled. She had simply studied Maricela, as if measuring whether this new adult would stay or disappear like so many others. And Maricela had stayed. She learned Isla's rhythms, the way she tapped twice on a table when she was curious, the way she tugged at sleeves when she was overwhelmed. They spent their days in the bright conservatory where sunlight streamed through glass ceilings, practicing sign language, painting, reading picture books where Maricela exaggerated every expression so Isla could see stories in her face. They baked cookies in the afternoon, flour dusting Isla's small nose as she laughed without sound, her joy visible in the way her shoulders shook and her eyes squeezed shut. But love, no matter how pure, could not erase reality. Alaric's business was expanding overseas, and he planned to relocate after the new year. He believed a specialized boarding program abroad would be better for Isla, one with advanced resources and state-of-the-art technology. Maricela had argued gently that Isla needed stability more than innovation, but she was an employee, and her contract ended Christmas Eve. So there she stood, heart heavy, listening to the faint hum of daytime traffic beyond the gates, memorizing the way sunlight lit up dust motes in the living room. Isla was upstairs finishing a session with a speech therapist who had insisted on one last attempt before the holiday. Maricela told herself she had done her best. She had given Isla consistency, warmth, and the unspoken reassurance that silence did not mean emptiness. Yet the thought of leaving felt like abandoning something sacred. Footsteps echoed on the staircase. Isla appeared at the top, her small hand gripping the polished railing. She wore a red wool dress and white tights, her dark curls pinned back with a silver bow. The therapist trailed behind her, offering a polite nod before slipping away. Alaric stood near the fireplace, checking messages on his phone, already half consumed by the future. Isla's eyes searched the room until they found Maricela. There was something different in her expression that day. Not fear. Not confusion. Something resolute. Maricela knelt, opening her arms instinctively. Isla descended the stairs slowly, each step deliberate, as if she were walking toward a decision rather than a person. When she reached the bottom, she did not run into Maricela's embrace as she usually did. Instead, she stood inches away, her small chest rising and falling quickly. Alaric glanced up, distracted but watchful. The house seemed to hold its breath. Isla lifted her hands, forming the sign she had used 1,000 times before, the one that meant caregiver, comfort, home. But then her hands fell to her sides. She swallowed, her throat working with visible effort. Her lips trembled. Maricela felt a flicker of alarm. She had seen Isla try to vocalize before. It usually ended in frustration, in tears, in a storm of silence. But this time, Isla's gaze did not waver. Her mouth opened. The sound that emerged was fragile, barely audible, shaped more by breath than voice. Yet it carried through the grand room like a bell. Mommy. The word was imperfect, slightly slurred, but unmistakable. Alaric's phone slipped from his hand and hit the rug without a sound. His face drained of color. For a second, he looked like a man who had just witnessed the impossible and did not trust his own senses. Maricela froze. The box fell from her arms, spilling its contents across the polished floor. She felt her heart pound against her ribs so hard it almost hurt. Isla took one shaky step forward and repeated the word, louder this time, forcing it into existence with every ounce of courage in her small body. Mommy. Tears blurred Maricela's vision. She had never asked Isla to call her that. She had carefully signed Maricela every day, respecting the memory of the woman who came before her. But children understood love in their own language. Alaric crossed the room slowly, as if afraid the moment would vanish if he moved too quickly. He knelt beside them, his usually composed expression shattered. He looked at his daughter, then at the nanny who had filled the empty spaces of their lives with patience and warmth. In that sunlit living room, surrounded by ornaments and wealth that suddenly seemed meaningless, Alaric finally saw what could not be purchased. He saw that his daughter's first word had not come from the most advanced therapy session or the most expensive equipment. It had come from safety. From consistency. From love. He closed his eyes briefly, as though confronting every decision he had made in the shadow of grief. When he opened them, they were softer, humbled. Maricela gathered Isla into her arms, holding her as if she could protect that fragile miracle from the world. She felt the little girl's heartbeat against her own and understood that this was not the end of her story there. Outside, the winter sun shone brightly, reflecting off the snow in dazzling white light. It was still daytime, and everything felt new. Alaric stood and made a call, not to his overseas partners, but to cancel the relocation plans. His voice was steady, but his eyes never left the two figures on the floor. He realized that building a future did not require running from the past. It required choosing what mattered most. Maricela's last day as a nanny did not end with a goodbye. It ended with a beginning. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, and let us know in the comments if you believe love can give someone their voice. And before we close, I have a special request. Comment the word hope if you believe that even in silence, miracles are waiting to be heard. Because sometimes, on an ordinary Christmas Eve, under the simple light of day, a single whispered word can rebuild a family, heal a grieving father, and remind us all that kindness is the most powerful language of all.